Hi, we're going to take a little break from our topics on investments, maybe just a couple of episodes and discuss something else, but we are going to come back investments. We are far from finished that. As you've heard me say before, I look at life as moving from one problem to the next. The problems never end until we end, so being a good problem solver makes life easier. But whenever we solve problems, usually there are other issues looming. That's the nature of our complex existence, which includes growing up and educating ourselves, careers and supporting ourselves, becoming part of families with spouses and children, caring for our parents, professional relationships, as well as friendships, and finally our recreations. Sometimes it seems that nothing is easy, but one should avoid thinking that their own plight is unique and tougher than others, as it surely isn't. Now, I'm an enthusiastic believer that we can solve most of our problems. It might take a lot of time and analysis and experimentation dealing with any one problem, but there is always an optimal path. Now, one of my goals in this advice series is to offer aid and tips on problem solving. And I try to break down that process into certain fundamentals, which are the core of my topics. Through my own experiences and my observations of others, I believe that most problems can be solved. But notice I said most and not all. Here is why I say most and not all. We may be very analytical and practical and persevering in attacking our problems, but that doesn't mean that we are guaranteed success. For different reasons, sometimes we hit the proverbial brick wall with a problem. So then the question becomes, at what point do we realize that, and what do we do? There are costs to all our actions. Costs include financial, time, emotional anxiety, and frustration, and health. So then, when we are dealing with a situation and weighing alternative solutions, we must always weigh the cost of each and then decide on one where we believe the chance to solve the problem is reasonable and the associated cost is not too large. There are times when the cost of our actions can be significant. Take a young athlete with professional aspirations who is severely hurt in a car accident. So this can be a real setback to that professional career, but the athlete decides to not let the setback end those aspirations. But then the doctor warns that pursuing the career is fraught with danger, with great health risk, including paralysis and even death. At that point, the athlete must decide if the cost of pursuing the career is worth that potential cost. Likely, it isn't, and this is a case where we might have to admit defeat and choose a different career path. Or a person takes the medical board 6 times and fails. Perhaps medicine isn't the right career. Persistence is an attribute, but stubbornness can lead to a person taking excessive risks with great potential costs. A woman loves her boyfriend passionately, but the boyfriend has cheated on her 3 times in the last couple of years. Perhaps it is time for the woman to move on. So, when we are trying to solve our problems, we should try to avoid solutions that cost us more than what the gains are if we solve the problem. Maybe there are no feasible economic solutions to a problem, in which case we may have to adjust our goals and strategies. Sometimes admitting defeat is for the best, and then we look for an alternative goal or path. There are 2 pitfalls when we deal with our problems. The first is those who admit defeat too easily. Some concede prematurely and are afraid of the cost of proceeding or lack confidence, and they wave the white flag prematurely. When you do that regularly, you usually wind up shortchanging yourself and anyone else who is involved. As a result, you leave a lot on the table and you will not achieve the maximum success that you're capable of. The second pitfall is in the other direction. It involves those who don't know when to admit defeat. They push themselves excessively and sometimes foolishly, and often the costs of doing so are debilitating. So when we're dealing with our lives and problems, We should always weigh the cost of our actions, and that should figure in our choices. And as we make them, and if we learn in time that the costs are more excessive than we thought, then we have to adjust our goals and courses of action. Sometimes this means admitting defeat. There is nothing wrong with that as long as we haven't shortchanged the process and given it our best shot. Solving problems and success is great, it's fantastic. But at times, our potential success will be impeded by the fates or unrealistic goals and excessive cost, which we learn after the fact. So it is sensible and not dishonorable for us to occasionally admit defeat and move on. And you should not feel bad about it, because that is part of life. Thank you very much.